Hello, everyone. This will be one of my authors chats of the week. And as always, I'll give it a moment to kind of notify everybody that we're here, as well as allow me to kind of keep an eye out for my co-host for today. And I apologize in advance if you hear any knocking or banging. I have construction workers, they're doing a basement remodel. So depending on what they're doing and when, it might be pretty loud in the background. So hopefully that is not the case this time. We shall see. Let's see if I can see the invite. Hello.
Hey, Katharine.
How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I am fantastic, and I'm glad we got to meet and get a chit chat for a little bit today. I'm not sure, I never know who's seen any of my lives before, so just to run down, it's pretty conversational. If anybody posts in the comments something bookish, either of us can kind of, answer or make note of that. I'm pretty sure it all depends on how people join the line and who they follow, so I may or may not see all those comments. So again, if I'm missing anything, please feel free to point that out. But outside of that, we're just going to have fun, and I'll let you introduce yourself and what you write. And I also saw that you're also a narrator, so maybe talk about a little bit of that, and we'll go from there.
Sure, happy to. And my audio is good?
It's fantastic.
Fantastic. All right. So yeah, hi, I'm Ben Schenkman. I am today's co-host, apparently. That was actually, I saw your post and I was like, ooh, I'm a co-host.
Yes.
So I'm an urban fantasy author and audiobook narrator. So I have a 3-book series out right now, and I can talk about that now or later. I don't know how you'd prefer to do that.
Whatever you want. So if you want to deep dive into that, we can always loop back around for your narration in a little while.
Sure. Well, it kind of dovetails because I started doing audiobook narration because I wanted to have audiobooks of my books.
I love
So I do, my first audiobook credits are actually my own books. So the first book in the series is called The Devil You Know. And my urban fantasy has more than a touch of pulling on religion and spirituality as a lot of the source of fantastical elements. So the first book is called My Boss is the Devil, and it follows the journey of a young barista named Nick, who is kind of stuck in a dead-end life in New Haven, Connecticut, which is actually my old stomping grounds. And he gets a chance to change his life when he gets a job offer from the devil himself. It's nothing like he would expect. And the first book especially, a lot of folks tend to think is on the cozier side just because it's not world-shattering stakes. But the stakes are pretty important to Nick. The next 2 books continue to follow both his adventure and the supporting characters that become like secondary and tertiary main characters throughout. So the second book is called Dueling Shoulder Angels. And that is about Nick, but also the goth witch from the first book. Her name is Amy, who is a reader favorite.
Love those.
So Amy features more prominently in book 2. This is where we go from having just the devil. We also introduce God, and God is also not what you would expect. So there's 2 POVs in the second book. And I'll say the first 2 books are out in audiobook. Dueling Shoulder Angels, the second one, my lovely partner Katya narrates Amy's chapters. So it's actually their first audiobook debut as well. So My Boss is the Devil, entirely narrated by me, was my audiobook debut. And then the third book, which is currently the last one, though I'm writing the 4th one, this is Too Many Gods in the Kitchen. And this is where we start going outside of the Abrahamic pantheon. You can see from the cover, it's not really much of a giveaway, but at least one of the pantheons introduced in the third book is Hindu.
With multiple limbs and yeah. I have to say, your covers are stunning. I love the kind of the illustration look and then the vibrant background color choices. So kudos to you. Did you design your covers? Did you hire someone to professionally do them beyond yourself? Like, how did those get developed?
Yeah, thank you. I adore my covers. Like, I feel like this isn't like children. We're allowed to have favorites.
Mhm.
When it comes to our books. I absolutely love this series because of the covers. And I will say, actually, I already have the fourth cover designed, and it may be my favorite yet. We'll have to see. But I
Ah.
actually went through a, it's actually a budget design firm. It's called the Get Covers.
Mhm.
So for anyone who's familiar with Miblart or Mibblart, I don't know how you're supposed to say that, but they are a more like mid-tier. Their
Yeah.
budget arm is getcovers.com, and they effectively use their like junior designers to do those covers. They don't use any AI in the process. It's all you give them kind of a general idea of what you want, give them some suggested stock images,
Mhm.
and then they take those stock images and work it into a designed cover. And they do a phenomenal job. Um, and I'll say, like, people say you can't get a quality cover for cheap. And if you're willing to put in the work to go back and forth with your designer, because that's the thing, for the lower cost, you have to do a lot of revisions, but you can do unlimited revisions with them. So, like, I don't know, probably my latest cover for a different book series, I did 16 rounds going back and forth
Mhm.
until it looked the way that I wanted. So what you save in money, you lose some time.
Yes,
Uh,
everything's give and take.
but the covers were $35.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like any author that says I can't get a good looking cover for less than $500, you can. You just have to work at it.
Yeah, and it's also there. I think part of it is you also have to know how to search for a quality designer or illustrator, because there are a lot of people out there that will charge more who try to just turn a quick buck and they're not good at what they do. So there's that as well. You kind of have to search around and find the right, kind of the combination of finding the right people in the right budget and having the time slash money divide so you can produce a quality project or product, as what we're talking about, book covers. But I think that also goes when people aren't fortunate enough to be able to narrate their own books. The same thing kind of goes with narration, because that can be pretty pricey. But there is always an opportunity of you doing it yourself. If you know what you're doing, you're comfortable with it. You learn the techniques if you don't automatically know it from prior experience, and you develop, get that technology, all the gadgets, which is so beyond me. I do not narrate my own stuff.
I don't blame you. What most people don't know is that for every finished hour of audio, and like you know this, but like for the audience, um, every finished hour of audio takes anywhere from like 4 to 6 hours of work. And that's for like people who know what they're doing. When you're getting into this, it's going to take you longer. My first book took me probably, I don't know, if I was going to guess, I would say 7 or 8 hours of work per finished hour, because I ended up having to go back and redo a bunch of things that, like, now on my second book, I didn't have to redo.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge, there's a, so I have a sentimental reason for why I wanted to narrate my audiobooks also. So if anyone is listening and watching and has the audiobooks, you've heard the dedication, and that these audiobooks are dedicated to my mom,
Mm.
who has had a number of health issues that make it so she really can't read like physical or media books anymore. So on top of not wanting to pay for having them produced, which for the record, like, I did a bunch of auditions. I went through ACX, I opened the project,
Yeah.
I got a bunch of auditions, and part of my calculus on it was, I need to compare this to what I could do, in that, it usually when it's like you see like a really fancy crocheted project and you're like, oh, I could do it myself. Like, it's kind of like that in the could you, but
Yeah.
then also how long would it take you? But then in the end, also, I wanted my mom to be able to hear these books in my voice. which
Oh, wow.
was pretty important to me. And for the record, like she's already listened to the first book multiple times, and the second book just came out earlier this month, and I think she's already gone through it twice. So
Wow.
it feels worth it, though it's like many, many, many hours of work.
Yeah, and for anybody who publishes, especially on the indie side of things, there's always those choices you have to decide. Is this something you're going to outsource or something you're going to train yourself so you can hopefully master it? And again, time and money, you're trying to figure out where that balance is. And there are so many things, including, marketing and advertising that go into that for indie authors. But yeah, the more you can teach yourself how to do as efficiently as possible, that can financially help you, just depending long term what your goals are. And I did see way early on that you definitely have a fan who's been watching and giving you some nice comments along the way as well. But going back to narration, I found this fascinating. Are you at this moment only narrating your own work, or are you open to other people's books to narrate them? Because I know some authors who just narrate their own work, and then others who, again, are trying to now kind of put, stride that line between being their own writer-narrator to producing other people's works. Sorry, long question.
Great question, and the answer is I'm the bird on the wire straddling the line. I've made it kind of a deal with myself in that I've auditioned for parts that are small enough that I feel like I can do those while also still doing my other work.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I still have like book 3, the audiobook, I haven't even started recording that yet. But I've been a part of a number of projects by Total Immersion Narration. And that's actually Celtic Blue to You, who's in the audience, actually is the owner of Total Immersion Narration and one of my biggest supporters and
I
fans.
love that.
So Total Immersion Narration, they do full cast narration. So I can audition for smaller parts knowing that I'm only going to be responsible for like 20 minutes of finished audio for this project. And honestly, secret, I don't even I don't edit or master this stuff because there's someone that does it for the production. So I record my lines, I make sure they're clean, and I send them off, and I'm good to go. So yeah, I do smaller projects that I'm not necessarily fully responsible for, but I'll take on small projects. I just did one with there's a YouTube channel podcast called Redacted Tales, and
Sounds so familiar.
so yeah, Clarence is a pretty common figure on like book talk circles, and I got in touch with him through a different. I'm regularly on another book talk show called CSI Cold Reads with Aaron Smith, and I got in touch with him through that, and I just narrated and produced a small short story written by Clint Baker, who, by the way, that's also one of the book series in Total Immersion Narration that I'm involved with is Clint Baker's The Worshipped Around Reality's Bend is the name of the book series.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, I always make 1,002 notes on these just because I learn so much, and you never know what can help you, take that next stride forward in your publishing career. So that's really neat, and kudos to you, especially for starting that whole journey of narration, because there's some people on Book Talk that will kind of post about the whole learning process. It's fascinating and kind of like awe-inspiring because that's a lot of effort. It really is.
It is a lot. I feel like at some point I should do a live just like talking with people about the experience of producing your own audiobooks. Because like it is more consuming than writing, frankly. Like I love writing the stories. It feels somehow like more work to do the audiobook than it did to write the stupid thing in the first place. I don't know if that's actually true because I don't log my hours when I'm writing, but like it's more work because it is frankly less rewarding from a creative process.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like for anyone who, Oh, good.
I was gonna say one of my narrators had this conversation with me because he professionally is an actor on TV and movies and every sort of thing. But he said of all things, being a narrator for audiobooks is the hardest job he's ever done, especially the ones he produces at home and does all that as well. He's like, I've been on so many things, and this field is the most challenging, and it's usually in ways that aren't as you would expect, at least. So I totally can understand that from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, 100%.
So when it goes to your stories, what made you, because I feel like this is a very obvious question, what made you decide that your first book was going to be your first book? What was that spark?
So yeah, I was working what I felt like was a dead end job. So My Boss is the Devil has an interesting origin story as far as like conception to publication,
Mm-hmm.
because I wrote probably the first, I don't know, quarter of it back in like I'm gonna date myself. Back in 2007, uh, and then I put it away for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
then uh, during National Novel Writing Month, which I know is like a a dirty word now. Uh, in 2014, I wrote the rest of it into the first draft, and you'll
Ah.
note that it didn't get published until the end of 2023. So like this story's been a long time coming, but like I was in that I was Nick. You know, not all of our characters are self-inserts, except all of our characters are self-inserts. And and Nick is a bit of an everyman in
Yeah.
that for anyone or every person, anyone who has worked a job where they just felt like this can't be all there is, there's got to be something more rewarding than what I'm doing just to scrape by. That's Nick. And that was me at the time. It's how I felt about it. And I thought to myself, you know, like of all of the things, like what would happen tomorrow if the devil just sidled up to me and offered me a job? Besides the fact that I would say yes. Uh, the idea for the book emerged from that, and then it was just kind of the rest is history.
That's great. So, okay, now I also have to ask, with the preliminary idea coming to you, and of course that is a wonderful thing. Did you know early on that this was going to be a series, or has it just been slowly evolving over time?
I can't say anything slowly evolved
Sure.
because the jump back into writing and publishing happened very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I dusted the manuscript off in early 2023, did a bunch of revisions, added like 10,000 words, did a couple of review passes with some friends of mine. I got involved in a local writers co-op. So shout out to my writers co-op. And uh, then while I was going through I decided to self-publish because like I had submitted the manuscript to some agents and publishers like a number of years ago, back
Mm-hmm.
when self-publishing and independent publishing was less respected than it is now. And again, we still have our detractors, but overall, the publishing landscape has become so much more positive towards independent authors. And actually, can I share a funny book talk story?
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know if you follow Atomic Apple Pie.
I do not at this moment, but I will write that name down.
Yeah, so Atomic Apple Pie is one of my favorite creators that reads bad romance prose written by men. Uh, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just like, so I was listening to her read these excerpts of published books, and I said to myself, look, I wrote a book, and it cannot possibly be as bad as any of this. And these are
Hmm.
published.
Yeah.
Like, whether they're traditionally published or independently published, it doesn't matter. These are published books. I wrote a story that deserves to see the light of day. And like that day, I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm self publishing. And then I was going through the process of doing that like mid 2023.
Hmm.
And then National Novel Writing Month 2023, which was before it was a
Yes.
bad thing to say. Uh, I wrote 90% of Dueling Shoulder Angels, the second book, in NaNoWriMo 2023.
Wow.
I finished it in December. I then started editing and whatnot. While then, in January, I started writing the third book and was done with that draft by like March.
Hmm.
So yeah, it pretty much immediately, once I started going through like revising for publication, it came to me that I wanted to continue this as a story. I was like, there's more to this because I left the ending pretty open-ended because I had
Hmm.
originally planned on it just being a standalone
I
with
know how that is.
potential, but yeah, uh, so I did not know immediately that it was going to be a series, but once it got started, it just kept going. Like the second book basically wrote itself, and the
Hmm.
third book was a little tougher, but still like flowed very well. And I'm writing the fourth one right now
That's great.
because apparently these characters and myself, I've still got things to say. But this is on top of I have two other standalone slash series starters in different like alternate urban fantasy realities that I'm going to start going through the process of publication in the next month or so. So like I've had a lot going on.
That's wonderful, and clearly you're a prolific writer because in relatively a short time from dusting off your manuscript, as you said, and actually getting really into it, you've already turning out multiple books in relatively quick, short time spans, which is very impressive. So kudos to you for that. And I will also mention I totally understand the whole starting trying to be a standalone and it ends up being a series. My first book was like that, where I wrote it specifically to kind of be not just to tell the tale. I love the story, but it also was for me a way for me to figure out my writing voice and learn the process. And before it got to the series that I had wanted to write from the get go, and of course during the one part where I went in one weekend to a writing conference and came out, and I was like, oh, this is a 4-book series.
Yeah.
This is not a standalone. So that kind of derailed my original plan for a while, but it's sometimes that's just the fun part is letting the story kind of tell itself, take on that life of its own, let the characters and you go on a journey together simultaneously. So that is really neat. Now, do you have any clue if this upcoming fourth book is the final book, or are we going to continue on with new adventures beyond that potentially?
So I think the fourth book is the end of the main story.
Okay.
I
Yes.
don't do okay, some people would disagree with this, but I don't do cliffhangers. And
Mhm.
if people think it's a cliffhanger at the end of my book, it's just a little teaser about what happens next. It's not a cliffhanger. Uh everything that's important from a plot perspective wraps up
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
book that it's in. And then I tease what could be next. But for the most part, most of the books end with the possibility that this could be it. And you can just imagine what's happening to these characters as they ride off into the sunset
Mm-hmm.
together. And, but this fourth book, so just to, like, the fourth book is about death. Okay. So I'm not saying that this is like a deep seated psychological thing that I'm working through, but apparently it's a deep seated psychological thing that I'm working through. And so instead of focusing on like a deity, though there are them, like
Yeah.
there are in this book, it focuses on the concept of death as well as like death
Mm-hmm.
gods and
Okay.
personifications. And the book to me, and like I have an early alpha reader, and sorry, hi Joel, hi everybody. Uh, I do have like a read along alpha reader, which like for the record is the best thing that you can get. Like best thing
Mm-hmm.
since sliced bread is an alpha reader that just wants to read the chapters as you churn them out. Um, and it feels heavier to me. I don't know if it feels heavier to anyone else, but like something about this fourth book makes it feel like it's going to be done after this.
I gotcha. Yeah.
However, the characters aren't done. I feel like from here we move into a space where I could write some standalones about the characters, because I'm not like a big main character killer, or at least not like permanently. Spoiler.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like the characters, as I've developed them, could maybe even each have an individual, like standalone novel for something that they go
Right.
off and do. But the
Hmm.
main series, I feel like, it's going to be like a 4 book main series. I get quadrology. Is that a
Yeah.
word?
Yeah.
Uh,
I would think so. Yes, that would make sense.
yeah. Um,
I almost think like the way you're describing it, it's like one of those choose your own adventures, but it's like choose your own book series. You get to like the part, and then the author's like, pick your character and go from there. See where the characters take you beyond that, and that's pretty cool. I did also see the comment, which I thought was hysterical, about referring to you in cliffhangers, saying he walks you up to the cliff but doesn't push. I
should
do
we just lean over? It's just
just lean. I couldn't know.
no. It's funny though. Like and it's the way that I found. If I let my brain write stories the way that it likes to write stories,
Mhm.
I I can't really conceptualize a book much longer than 80,000 words, which is so every book that I write is targeted for about 80,000 words.
Okay.
And that's how the story is going to wrap up. My
Yeah.
brain's just like, no, can't do more than that. So I kind of write them like really long serials in that, like, this is the current adventure of Nick.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like I said, I don't feel like they're cliffhangers. People wanting the next book very badly does not mean that I left you on a cliffhanger. That's not the same
That's true.
thing.
That's true. That's true. I'm the opposite where I love cliffhangers. Now, not necessarily all my books have like a harsh cliffhanger that you're like holding on by your pinky. No, no, no. Some of them do, but maybe not all. But I do tend to write the cliffhangers because I do like that hook. And I will admit, one of the perks about being more learning the craft is becoming a quicker writer, more efficient writer, and so I am able to shorten that time frame because I understand releasing a book and then having a 2-year gap is not fun for the reader. I understand, I sympathize, but I can only work at the speed that I can work. Nowadays, I'm able to speed that up, but then again, I also do the wrong thing where then I start publishing simultaneous series, and then it's still a book a year. Per
I,
series,
I
not
feel like
overall.
I feel like a book a year is still pretty prolific. Like we can't, and this is a pep talk for everybody. We cannot judge ourselves based on
Mhm.
people who do this a full time. If you
Yeah,
can manage to do this full time, you are going to be more prolific than anybody else. That's just a
there's
fact.
so many
And
factors.
most of us are not full time authors, even if we want to be, because we got bills to pay. I have a
Mm-hmm.
kid who just walked in the door coming in from summer camp.
Yes.
Uh, so I think a book a year is very reasonable. And also, like, a book a year, you're not like Rothfussing people by waiting to never release the next book. So, like,
Yep.
I feel like you're still doing a good job as an author trying to be accountable to your readers.
Well, I will also clarify. I am at this moment a full-time author and artist. So when I say book a year, it's per series. So I'm usually doing 3 to 4 books a year at this point, but I am a full-time author and artist. So I balance accordingly. Like you said, not everybody's like that. We definitely don't begin that way predominantly. We have bills to pay. We have, existing jobs, existing obligations, and we do what we have to do. If you sit down for 20 minutes a day, put down 200 words in that time, you're going to get a book. It just may take a little longer than someone else who has a 5-hour block. I cannot write 5 hours straight, I'll be honest.
Don't do it. Like, even like John Scalzi is an incredibly prolific full-time writer, has been for a very long time, and
Mhm.
his daily word count goals are very like modest, all things
Mhm.
considered. But he also writes books that he writes more like popcorn books in that they are meant to be entertaining and they are not that long.
Yeah.
And much respect. So again, like when I said one per year is very reasonable, even if you just said one per year per series, also still very reasonable. And hats off to you to be able to do that full time.
Well, it took me a while, and I worked backwards. I was the full time, more or less, artist first, and then I've been shifting over time depending on income and the backlog and all that kind of stuff. So it's a work in process. I'm getting to where my end goal is. It's, as all things, it takes time.
Yeah, but like knowing your limits too. So good, just diving way back to the cover conversation, I have never considered doing my own covers. Um, I know my limits. That's one of them. I'm not that kind of artist. I'm a lot of different kinds of artist. I am not that. So
Yeah.
like, uh, uh, being able to make a living as a full-time artist, period, I think is great. And yeah, I've known my limits there.
Yes. Well, kind of like also with you, like my style art is not what I need for my covers. And knowing and one of the things, especially if you're indie and you have some level of control over your covers, know your genre and your subgenre and what is expected of those style covers. That does matter a lot and will affect how easily sellable your work is. And I know my style of art, which is pet portraiture, is not necessarily going to relate to my high fantasy.
I love
That's
pet
why I hire
portraiture.
artists.
I love pet port. I mean, so my books feature well, I don't know how depending on the book. My books tend to feature cats. I'm a cat person.
I like it.
Sorry, dog people. Um, Book one has a Maine Coon cat named Odin,
Ooh,
who is roughly based on. Well, actually, he was conceptualized uh, out of nowhere, but he's still right now. He's roughly based on my 20-pound Maine Coon cat that I have at home.
that's great.
Book two introduces Pants, who is a black and white tuxedo cat that is my partner's. And then in book three, Pants actually has like a pivotal role, which is entertaining. And now in book four, I'm going to be introducing. We have an orange cat, a big dumb boy named Jack, and Jack enters the chat in book four.
I love that. No, it's so much fun getting to know, and I'm sorry, I'm about to sniffle, but it's so much fun getting to know other authors and finding out the little Easter eggs they tuck in. And the more you know about them, the more you pick up. For instance, in my Viking myth retelling, one of the main character actually, she has a gift to see and communicate with every person's animal-shaped guardian spirit, which actually does come from Nordic myth. And her brother's takes the form of a wolfhound. I've always loved wolfhounds, never thought I was going to get one. And a few years ago, I had one pretty much end up and be gifted to me. So I have Odin the wolfhound. And in a whole circle of things, I'm finally getting to the point where planning a special edition release of that series later on this year. I'm finally commissioning character art. And the wolfhound in the character art is actually based off photos of my own wolfhound now. So full circle. It's fun though. It's fun.
I would, if anyone wanted to do character art of any of the cats in any of my books, I would like be over the moon. Uh,
That would be
but
great.
yeah, yeah. For the record, like I have a deep-seated love for Norse myth. So yeah, if you want to drop bits of lore into the chat, I'm happy to geek out about that with you also.
Oh, I could talk about Nordic myth all day, every day, and I also see the chat of your sister shows wolfhounds. That is amazing. I love
There
that. I'm jealous.
is that a miss not naming your wolfhound Fenrir, or was that like not
My
giving something?
wolfhound came with the name Odin.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I know. So again, it was one of those. It was too perfect, and so he has both his eyes. So the joke is, why is he an Odin and not something else like a Thor? But he's the sweet one of the two.
That almost makes sense. It's like he's Odin when he did not have the wisdom.
Yeah, yes, he's the younger version of Odin if Odin was ever somebody young.
Hmm.
And Murphy, I like that. Pet people, it's fun. Now, I think every author, that would be a fun challenge, is find a way to put your pet in your book. And it doesn't have to be an obvious way, but just write it in and see if someone would figure it out. So I like what you're doing with your cats.
Yeah, and their roles keep getting bigger, which is funny. Like, I mean, also, who doesn't love animals that you can at least vaguely anthropomorphize in a book?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not anthropomorphic, but like they have personalities.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And it is, and as you said, it is kind of fun challenge to take a character and maybe kind of combine it with a pet or vice versa. My husband, who loves, and this is a side tangent, loves D&D. We've been joking back and forth. Our other dog, God bless, is a husky mix of some sort. So she's off the wall crazy. And we were talking about crafting a D&D character like a little berserker of the small, feisty, but wild character, which essentially would be the spirit of the dog in character form.
Fantastic.
Fun stuff. But okay, let's go back to books and narration, all that jazz. So you were mentioning you have other projects that are in some kind of stage. Are we allowed to know about any of them at this point, or are they still kind of hush hush because they're too early?
No, I'll talk about them. Um, Obviously, I'm going to avoid spoilers. I will say, so it's been a challenge, and this is if we want to dive into at all, like the trad versus indie discussion, this could be part of it. Is
Sure.
I've actually been working, I've been working with an agent, and
Nice.
like
Mhm.
full disclosure, like it's a friend of mine who wanted to get into the agent space,
Yeah.
and so I straight up volunteered to be a guinea pig. Um, and so I have two books that have been on submission for 6 months.
It's a long
Um,
process. Yeah.
it is, but like we're about to give up on it. So like,
Yeah.
don't, yeah. So what, that's one of the challenges of having published my own books is now I'm just like champing at the bit to like get
Yeah.
anything out there. But so the first of the two, I'll talk about them in the order that I finished them. And the one that's actually like ready to go for ARC reads because I had it professionally edited and all that other stuff, because that was before I decided to test the waters.
Hmm.
And it's called Let Sleeping Gods Lie. Um,
Yeah.
and it is so all of my this is the only time I'm going to liken myself to Stephen King. All of my books take place in New Haven, Connecticut so far, because you write what you know, and it's one
Hmm.
of my favorite places, and it's got so much going on in it that in each of my series, I've managed to basically focus on a different part of the city, except there's a big green in the center of the city that figures more or less prominently in each of the books.
Hmm.
So, Let Sleeping Gods Lie is uh, it focuses on the indigenous myths of Connecticut. So, New Haven was actually like the ancestral home of the Quinnipiac tribe,
Hmm.
and there's an amazing myth about the name of the spirit like creature is or spirit figure is Hobbamock, and
Hmm.
there's Sleeping Giant State Park, which has an aerial map where if you look at it, it looks like a giant sleeping figure, and so there's a myth behind this where Hobbamock, uh, angry at the people for not receiving like basically due attention and praise, went rampaging through the countryside, stepping in the Connecticut River, causing it to bend, which is like there's a crook in the Connecticut
Interesting.
River,
Yeah.
until finally a good spirit named Kaitan put him to sleep, and that's where he sleeps now and he makes that hill. Um, so Let Sleeping Gods Lie is a book that was based on an idea that came out of that myth, and that's it. Like a lot of times my books come from like the end.
Hmm.
Like, well, what happens at the end? Oh, now I have to write the book around it. Um, So yeah, Let Sleep in God's Lie focuses on a community college professor named Corbin Pierce, who's like he's an archaeologist slash anthropologist, and it's about his efforts to effectively protect the indigenous spiritual
Hmm.
flora and fauna of the area. Um, he himself is not indigenous. I am not indigenous. It is not my
Yeah.
place to tell that story, though there is an indigenous supporting character specifically from the Golden Hill Paugussett tribe. I consulted with few indigenous people to go over the story. I had an indigenous beta reader give feedback, and I made some significant tweaks
Hmm.
to make sure that I'm like respecting the culture and the story. So that's that's part of that. And Tanya Celtic mentions in chat that she loves Scratch. Uh, Celtic was one of my beta readers and alpha readers. Frankly, there's a raccoon that figures prominently in the story. Speaking of animals that you can feel free to anthropomorphize.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's the first one. I'll pause there because I'll just ramble on forever.
I mean, we're authors. We love the stuff we write, and that's the good. That brings us joy. So, but I do love that premise. I love anything with myths and kind of again retellings of myths and or the what happens next of old myths. But I do love that idea. Now you have one other project. You said
I do, and I'm not gonna lie. Like I love. Okay, just to show them off again. I
yes, yes.
love these. Like I love these,
I love the cover so much.
but it is possible that this next one is actually my favorite book that I've written so far,
That's
just because the so this the I've I've kind of made a niche for myself in that my books, each of the series or potential series, focus on a different type of myth slash religion as magic.
mm-hmm.
Um, I am Jewish. I'm like the worst Jew, but I'm Jewish. And what people don't understand is that there is a ridiculous amount of demonology in in Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, like there's a book that's called the Talmud, and the Talmud is like chock full of just stuff about demons, demonology, magic spells.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lore is rich, and I had another idea that started at the reveal
Mm-hmm.
of the book, and I can't say anything about it because I would literally ruin the entire thing.
We
Um,
don't do that. Oh yeah.
but the book is called My Brother's Keeper,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with um, the main character, and like for some reason I'm blanking on his name is Max. So Max basically comes to town to investigate the death of his twin brother,
Wow.
and it it quickly reveals that that Max's brother Solomon was a Jewish mystic, which if you want to get really specific, is like a take on what in Judaism is called a, a wonder rabbi, which is like it's kind of what it does, what it says on the tin, like a
Mm-hmm.
rabbi that does like magic for helping people, but not necessarily like super broad. But either way,
Yeah.
so My Brother's Keeper is about Max investigating the mysterious death of his twin brother, and all of that ensues, and it's
Ooh.
absolutely like probably my favorite thing that I've written so far. Not just because it's the latest book that I finished, so like obviously talking about improving your craft, I feel like it's my most well written book so far, but also just the
Mhm.
story is like really good.
No, and that's one of those things that new authors need to be aware of. You want to always make every book you put out there as good as it can be, but you also want to challenge yourself that each subsequent book is going to be better. And so many times I'll talk to authors and their favorite book is the one they're working on or the one they just released, but not always, because sometimes you just have this one story that just speaks to you in a certain deep way, and that's the one. But that's really cool too. I love that. I love when authors can write about vastly different it's not even, I guess yours is a little more urban based, so it's not necessarily truly realities, but just like you said, different magic systems and almost separate little pocket worlds the way you're creating them. So that's really neat. Now, before I forget, because the hour's starting to speed by, there are a couple questions I always like to ask, because if this platform is nice, most of the time it is, I'll repurpose this live chat on my YouTube channel, put all your contact information down below. But for everybody here, and as well as those people who watch it going forward, where can people get the books you have so far? Like, are you exclusive through Zon? Do you sell through your website? Are you wide? Where can people find the books you have so far?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mishmash. So my current series is, so The Devil You Know consists of 3 books. The ebooks are exclusive to Zon because they are in the KU program. So for all you subscribers out there, those are for you. And speaking of popcorn reads, just you'll finish them quick. The physical copies, it is available in paperback and hardcover through pretty much every retailer, because I publish both through Zon and through Ingram Spark. The audiobooks, audiobook number 1, My Boss is the Devil, is available on Audible as well as pretty much all of the other audio platforms, because that one I've pushed wide.
Yes.
Book 2 is currently in the 90-day exclusive ACX period, so it's currently only available on Audible. Do not fear, it will be more widely available once that exclusive period is over. For the audiobooks, I wanted to make sure that those were more widely available, and especially so that my local library who stocks my books can pick those up for their program.
No, that's great. I was gonna say just because only this year I started doing that and pulling. Not all the books I have rights to pull out of Audible, because I have one of the split deals with a narrator for one series, but all the other ones I've been able to start taking wide as of this year. So I'm curious to see how it goes, and I'm just very happy, like you mentioned, the people in libraries and other listening platforms can find them. But yeah, sorry I cut you off. Continue.
No, that's okay. I had paused like I was done, but then I forgot about something. If you go to my website, which is benschenkman.com, and you sign up either for my newsletter or to be one of my ARC readers or street team, either way, you get a free short story, which is a prequel to My Boss is the Devil. It talks about how Nick got into Lucifer's crosshairs in the first place. So it's a nice little short story to ease you into the world and give you some more backstory that is free through my website if you sign up for my newsletter.
That's fantastic. And that leads to another question as well, which is, outside of Book Talk, where can people find and follow you? So you already mentioned that you have a website and newsletter. Are you on any other socials at this time?
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. I think technically I'm on Threads, but though I don't touch it. I am on Facebook. I have an author page there. You can always reach out to me there. I am not on the Twitter at all for reasons. And obviously I'm here, so you can find me here. But yeah, I think that's primarily for socials where I'm also on Instagram, of course.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of tough decisions for authors, is how many and which ones do you want to be on, because you want to have the widest reach as possible, but there's like inner politics as well as just, time is money, and we only have so much time a day. And I feel like I'm an expert reposter, and I will make things go and do their weird cycles, so nothing's ever necessarily on too many places at once. But that's still time, that's still energy. So that's why I'm always wanting to know where people are hubbing and hanging out. when they're not here on Book Talk, which is my favorite space as long as we have access to it. That's my goal. But yeah, so thank you for that. And also another good question. This is my third question I always like to ask, and this time I'm remembering to ask it with enough time for everybody who's listening, as well as you, Ben. Is there any topic you want to cover? Any questions you had that you haven't had to ask? This is that great time for everybody to do that. So throwing that out now.
I'm going to pretend that I'm waiting for people in the chat to ask a question because I'm just thinking about it.
It's okay. It's such a nebulous, broad question that you could go pretty much anywhere, but I absolutely love that. Okay, so going back, I guess, to your writing side of things, how do you like to promote your books? Because obviously there's free stuff like what we're doing today, but is there any particular strategy? Do you like to go out and do any physical face-to-face events? Like, how do you like to find your readership?
Like is a funny word. I don't
Fair
like.
enough.
No, I love interacting with readers. I hate the constant marketing that's required to be an independent author. But the reality is, just to jump onto that trad train for a second, traditionally published authors, if you're not like super well known and supported by your publisher, are going to do this stuff themselves anyway. So like going trad doesn't make this not part of your job as an author. So on the indie side, we know we're accountable for all of this stuff. As far as official things, I try my best to get a decent ARC campaign going, advanced reader copies for generating some early reviews and some buzz about the book. I do use Facebook ads because that's the only money that I've thrown at ads that's given me any return. Like Zon ads are terrible and net me nothing. No matter how many author intensive things I watch about how to make my ads better, they're bad and they should feel bad. And so, yeah, I do some of that. I do some local events if I can. I've done some events at my local library, trying to meet some local people. I do some art events, like there's some art walks in my local area where artists and vendors set up tables, and I've done that. I'll usually share a table with someone else from my author's co-op to reduce the cost of the table.
Yeah.
I don't tend to do conventions, though I'm interested in doing that in the future, only because the booth cost for a convention plus hotel and other stuff is usually too high unless I actually just individually want to attend, and like selling stuff is a bonus. So yeah, outreach and promoting myself is tough. I do stuff on here, but I can't possibly keep up with the how many posts a day you're supposed to do in order to be effective. So I do what I can.
That changes, and everybody says something else too. So that's the whole thing about publishing. What works for one person may not necessarily work for someone else. But as someone who started getting into the convention bracket, I do highly encourage that. But there are also little tips and tricks on how to keep your costs down. For instance, if you try to get in as typically, if you try to get in as a panelist, one of the perks about that is most often your entry fee is paid. So then, that's just one expense down. Now you do have to then work by doing X amount of panels. But if you like to talk about what you like, which is the writing, which is the publishing, which is, all those kind of things, that's kind of what you're doing. So, and then hopefully if you do get a booth fee, you sell enough to at least compensate that and make money. But it's a great place to network and find new readers, but also, again, meet other authors and learn. So I do advise that one if you are able to. I did see also a question come in a little earlier asking about, do you have, outside of the 3 projects you mentioned, the 2 that you talked about a little earlier and the series you're trying to complete ... Now, do you have any other books in the wings or other ideas for books in the wings?
I have a Google Doc with like a list of ideas. I will say I'm also taking part in this year's Inkfort Publishing Derby. For anyone who is not familiar with that, you sign up and you rank a bunch of like 100. There's 100 signups, and you rank those covers in your order of preference of books you would like to write. It's a cover with a title and a
Okay.
pen name, and then they basically draw straws and then assign the covers based on preference and availability.
Ooh,
And
interesting.
then you have to write a story about it.
Huh.
The minimum is 10,000 words. There's no maximum. And I'm currently participating and can say nothing about it other than I'm participating, because it's a no spend event with a pen name, and you're not allowed to use any of your existing contacts to promote anything other than the event itself. So hi, I'm promoting the Inkfort Publishing Derby as a whole, but not my project, which I can't talk about. So yeah,
Fair
I'm
enough.
doing that. So I will have a book hopefully published as part of that I can then reveal shortly after. I think it's like publishing is September, and within a month, then we get to reveal ourselves.
That's so
So
neat. I love that concept. So, to the people who put that on, congratulations for that, because that one's a new concept to me, and I think that's fantastic. I also see, sorry, I have to do the little swipe because I've reached that hour mark. I don't know why book talks that way, but I do see another question that popped up saying, specifically to you, what's your favorite aspect of world building?
so far, I think for me, because I write in a physical place that I know, part of my favorite world building is deciding which parts get to be supernatural and which
Mm-hmm.
parts are going to remain mundane. Like, it's mixing the reality with the fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because it's it's so much fun bringing something that like I've known into the fantasy world. In one of those two latest books, Let Sleeping Gods Lie, I got permission from this business in downtown New Haven called the Owl Shop. They're like a cigar bar and lounge that has been there forever. Like since I
Mm-hmm.
went to college there, that has been there since before that. And I got permission to use their location, which is the favorite hangout of the antagonist in the book. So like
Uh-oh.
I get to build these little it's my own life Easter eggs that I get to like
Mm-hmm.
put into my world. In addition, I'd say figuring out the differentiation in the magic systems, because like in the first series, it's a combination of like for Amy and company, it's like straight up witchcraft. But for Nick and his work with God and the devil, it's really like supernatural contract law.
Yeah. Yes.
But then in Let Sleeping Gods Lie, it's a very animist.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's not familiar with animism, animism is the belief that everything contains a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So it's a very animist look at magic, along with some of the ceremonies and trappings of various cultures. And then for My Brother's Keeper, it dives into Jewish lore and is very focused on scripture and like angelic script. As so I love the magic system part of the world building, because my if you're thinking of like the Brando Sando like hard soft magic,
Yeah.
like the four axis system, my magic is semi specific but still kind of nebulous. So it's fun to figure out how that works.
I love that. Yeah, and magic systems are just a fun topic to discover and chat about because there's so many out there, and that's one of the great things about writing any kind of fantasy, in my opinion, is kind of figuring out how that how you are expressing fantasy, and if you're incorporating magic, which fantasy is magic, I think, how are you going to do that as well? And no, I love that. That's great. Now, I know our hour is about to round down, so if anybody else has any questions, this would be the time to ask them. As far the last one I do want to ask you, Ben, is do you have any announcements that you want to make, be it an event or upcoming release? As you kind of mentioned a few in passing, but this is that great time to do your final pitch for the day.
Yeah, I mean, my final pitch is probably to promote my latest release, which is the audiobook for Dueling Shoulder Angels. So, once again, so the gorgeous millennial green velvet couch book cover here. Dueling Shoulder Angels just got released earlier in July. It is fantastic by all accounts. We only have 4 ratings so far, but it's currently 4.8 stars. And again, if you even moderately like my voice, my partner's voice is better than mine. Their voice is like made for narration. So go check that out. Pick up the first one because you can, and because it'll help you get into the world. And then again, keep your eyes peeled for the Inkfort Publishing Derby coming out in September, I believe.
And just to remind everybody who may or may not have heard, your first audiobook is wide. The second one is currently exclusive through Azan for a limited time, and you'll intend to take it wide thereafter.
Correct. Yes. So if it's not on your preferred platform right now, it hopefully will be within the next less than 90 days.
Yeah, because there are rules we all have to live by, and that's one of them. I understand. But thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me for this past hour, Ben. And I've been really enjoying being able to get to know you and talk to you face to face, because I know I've kind of emailed you and chit-chatted in passing about some other things behind the scenes, but it's been really nice to talk, and I've been really enjoying it. And all your projects and everything you do. My word.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I would happily come back anytime. You're a joy to speak with, so thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Like, if you want to jump back on after you release another book or two, let me know. I plan them pretty much every week. Try to do it well in advance, though. I am a planner. I have to do that, but that's just the thing. That's my life. But thank you for everybody who's chimed in, jumped in, hung out with us. And again, one more time, Ben, thank you for hanging out. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week and happy reading.